are excited to have Darryl Glass from Advent Properties here to talk to us about how to hire a property manager. Darryl has in the past come in and spoken at some of our events, and if you've gone to those, you know how great of a speaker he is, and if not, you are in for a treat today. Stay close to your email. In the coming days and weeks, we'll have more of these lined up for you very soon, and feel free to throw suggestions in the chat afterwards if you have topics that you think of that might be good for a future webinar, and questions and answers. Sorry, that's the last thing I need to touch. If you have questions that come up during the presentation, there is a chat box at the bottom of your screen. Darryl and I will both be monitoring that, and Darryl will get to those at the end of the presentation. With that being said, Darryl, thank you so much for offering to join us today, and please take it away.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. So I just wanted to first off introduce myself. My name is Darryl Glass. I am a broker associate, lead realtor, and Ccrm and executive vice president for Advent Properties, Inc. We are a local property management firm. Our headquarters is in Oakland. However, we service the entire East Bay and San Francisco area. We kind of go from Santa Cruz up to Richmond and all the way into Sacramento. So we're all over. This webinar will be recorded, and we will be sharing that on my YouTube, and I'll share that with Lee as well so he can get that passed along to you, as well as we will be sharing the slides for this presentation via email as well. If you have questions during this, I have muted everyone's microphones, but feel free to type those into the chat box. I will be monitoring that as well, Lee, and I will be answering those questions as they come up and at the very end. So there we go. I think I fixed it for you, Bill. So now everyone should be able to chat. So moving on. So a little bit about me. Like I said, I'm a licensed real estate broker here in the state of California. I also have my Ccrm certification. I've had that for many years now. I am a professional property manager. I now manage a team that does the day-to-day property management for me, but I help oversee that team. And I too own my own real estate properties. I own them here locally in San Francisco, as well as in the Midwest. So I'm very familiar with rental laws, specifically within California, and specifically within eviction and rent control jurisdictions. So why don't most people hire property managers? I've come up with 3 reasons. One, they don't really have a clear idea or understand what a property manager does. They're worried about the cost, or they're doing this as a hobby. Well, the property management field is an ever-changing field. So unless you're taking multiple classes a month to stay up to date on the local, state, and federal changes to real estate law, and that relate to property management, you may not be aware of everything that's happened in the last couple of years. For instance, there's AB 1482, also known as the Tenant Protection Act of 2019. And this makes all multifamily properties and some single family properties in the state of California subject to rent cap and eviction control. Also, you may not be aware of SB 329, that's California State Senate Bill 329. This prohibits discrimination based on source of income, which means you must now allow Section 8 candidates if they qualify for your property. Also, and we're lucky enough that in the Bay Area, each city has pretty much its own rent control. So, and each city's laws are slightly different than the other. So you need to stay up to date with the regulations for your specific city. There's also maximums you can charge for a rental application. Currently, the state law says it's $50, but that cannot exceed the prospective landlord's actual cost of gathering the information. And most importantly, Currently, there's actually an eviction moratoria in place due to COVID-19, and the rules and regulations for this are very strict, and you could be liable for trying to evict someone during this time period. Why you should hire a property manager. Property management, as I mentioned, is a very complex and ever-changing business. You need someone that is pleasant but firm, communicative but not aggressive, detail-oriented, organized, calm but not seemingly apathetic, truthful but does not overshare, and is always learning but not arrogant. Sometimes having a professional third-party property management firm is better for you in these type of situations because we do this for a day-to-day job. We understand the rules and regulations and laws that we must follow. We also aren't necessarily emotionally attached to the properties. We want what's in the best interest of you, the property, and the tenants. So I've come up with 25 questions that you can ask of a potential property manager if you're looking to hire them. These are in no particular order, and they are important for you to understand and know. So, sorry about that, I didn't mean to do that. So first off, is your firm licensed to do property management? Do you have any certifications? Any professional property management firm in the state of California must be a licensed brokerage under the California Department of Real Estate. For anyone that is licensed to sell real estate can do property management. However, there are specialized firms that's all they do, or that's what they focus on. Not every real estate agent knows all the rules and regulations in regards to property management. Additionally, for instance, my team, we require every staff member to hold Ccrm certifications. So they stay up to date with local, state, and federal laws, and we require them to keep their certification renewed by attending continuing education. Another key question is to ask the property management companies how long they've been around. For us, we've been around 13 years. We're not new to the business, but we're not so old and set in our ways that we're not staying up to date with technology. So that's always a good question. Because they're a new company doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. Because they're an old company doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. Companies that have been around for a while, they're doing something right. So just ask and find out more about the specific company and what they're founded for and what makes them a little bit different and why they've been able to succeed for so long. Question number 3, what makes your firm different than the competition? Now, there's many, many, many ways that you can answer this question. The most common things are what cities they cover, what jurisdictions they cover, what services they provide. Do they provide maintenance only contracts for those people that want to self-manage it? Do they only do full service property management? Do they do leasing only? Do they have in-house maintenance personnel? Those are all good questions to ask the property manager. Another potential question is, what type of property management do they do? Or do they do portfolio, or do they do compartmentalized? And we'll get into that more later on, so you'll understand the difference between those two types of property management. Question number 4 is, how many properties do you currently manage? This just kind of shows you their knowledge, their reach, whether or not they have enough staff in place for the number of properties they're doing, whether they're looking to grow or expand. We currently manage about 600 units. And I say units, not properties, because we have properties that have multiple units on there, 2 to 4 units sometimes. And we have room to grow. We're staffed and ready to grow. So that's a good question to ask your property manager. Another important type of question to ask your property manager or potential property manager is, what type of properties do you manage? Do they manage single family homes? Do they manage duplexes to fourplexes? Do they manage larger buildings that require an on-site manager? What's the level of services they provide to each of these type of properties? And keep in mind what type of property you have and you want to get under management. Managing a single family home is different than managing a 15-unit apartment building. And the property manager should know and understand this and be able to explain why they're beneficial and why to choose them for property management. Just as important is asking if they manage in your area. Do they have any other current listings in your area that are under contract? Do they in the past? Are they up to date with current rent control and eviction control laws for your area specifically? Suss this out from your potential property manager. Get into the weeds with your property manager so you know that when you do transfer management to them, they are the right person for you and they are going to take care of that property like it is your own. A lot of you ask for vacant properties, how do you set rental rates? My biggest thing is I do not provide rent comparables without physically seeing and touring the property. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I want to see the property and know the condition of the property, the building, the neighborhood, so I can go back and do research and figure out professionally what I think the property could rent for. We usually provide a couple $100 range for our rent comparables, and ultimately it's you as the landlord that can decide on what you want to rent it for. Those property managers that will just give you rent comps over the phone without knowing or seeing your property, I would take that with a grain of salt because they may not know your particular building, the benefits to your building, the benefits to your unit, your neighborhood, all those details. And so, like I said, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Once a tenant moves in or moves out, what are those procedures? How much is the security deposit? Who holds the security deposit? This is question number 8 for those following along. For us, what we do is a detailed move in and move out procedure. We take photos and text of every single room, and we document the condition. We save that in the tenant file. So when the tenants do move out, we have those available and we can deduct the necessary items to the itemized disposition, which is due within 21 days. How much is the security deposit? Well, the state of California mandates that it cannot exceed 2 times the monthly rent for a security deposit for an unfurnished rental or 2.5 times the monthly rent for a furnished rental. We typically see 1 month's rent for security deposit. Additionally, if there's a pet, there's not a pet deposit. We make it an additional security deposit. That way, if there's damage, you don't have to justify if it's from the pet or from the humans. So it's an additional security deposit. So just make sure that if for an unfurnished rental, you're not exceeding that 2-month cap on the security deposits. And who holds the security deposits? That's different from property management firm to property management firm. We at Advent Properties hold the security deposit in a broker's trust account. This is a non-interest bearing trust account where the security deposits sit until the unit vacates. Once the unit vacates, within 21 days, we get all the necessary work done, we create an itemized disposition, and we return the remaining balance to the tenants. Question number 9, what is your fee structure? There's multiple ways to handle this. Some property management firms charge a flat rate. Some property management firms charge a percentage rate. We charge a percentage rate and then we for monthly management as well as a leasing fee. While the unit is vacant, we're not charging you the monthly management fee. While we're leasing it, all the fees that are associated with the leasing process are included in that one fee. You don't start paying the monthly management fee until it's occupied. So dig into that with your property manager. Is there any hidden fees or any other onboarding fees that they may charge? Keep that all in mind so you can compare apples to apples when you're comparing different property managers. Question number 10, how do you send reports? How often? And can I see a sample? This is a great question. Every property management firm is a little bit different. We send owner statements once a month. Now, most professional property managers use a property management software. And within our software, we can create about 20 to 30 different types of report. So if the report that you're receiving doesn't have the information or isn't in the layout that you want or need for your records, ask your property manager if they have other versions of their support. They may. For us, it's a matter of clicking a few buttons and we can get you any of the 30 reports that we have access to. And then we note that for the future that you prefer this report versus our normal owner statement. We do send them out once a month at the end of the month, and that'll detail the rent that was collected, the bills that were paid, any maintenance that was done on the property, and then we email that to you. At the end of the year, we also put together a year-end summary for our owners, and they can use this with their tax preparer so they get the maximum deductions for their investment property. Again, there's multiple different styles of reports. If you're not getting the information you want, ask the property manager. And most property managers can send you samples. I'll send you samples of all different types of reports we have so you can pick and choose which one you want. Question number 11. Do you take on properties that are already tenant occupied? The answer to this is typically yes. We do this on a case-by-case basis. And part of what we want to do is we want to review the lease, the tenants, the property, and make sure that it's a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. Property management is a long-term game. We want to be successful. We want to have this as a partnership. So we don't want a situation where we're not going to win. So when you're talking to a property manager, talk about the good and the bad for your property. So they know what they're getting into and you know what you're giving up to them. Have a frank conversation. I will take on difficult properties if I know what your goal and your end game is as a landlord, as an owner. I want to be on your team. I don't want to be fighting with you to do the right thing for your property. So be frank and open conversation with your property manager. Question number 12. How are potential tenants screened? This is important. You want to screen your tenants very deeply before they become your tenants, so your prospective applicants. The reason for that is once they move in, things get much more complex, much more expensive to deal with difficult tenants. So some things that we do a credit check, we do income verification, we do previous rental verification, we do employment verification, we require pay stubs. Generally, we want to make sure they're very highly qualified. We don't accept anyone that has an eviction on their record. We don't accept anyone that has past due collections on their record. The caveat being, if it's a medical collection, we may allow that. It's a case-by-case situation, but we have our standards clearly printed on our website, as well as on the ads for each of our units. Question number 13, how do you advertise your vacant rentals? This is a good question. We advertise on 28 different websites and we update those websites 3 times a week so we stay on top of all the listings. Other property managers may do the same. We also put them on our own website, which is also where the tenants can apply, prospective tenants can apply for the property. We also print out a sheet and we update that in our front office Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for people that are in the neighborhood and want to swing by and pick up a list of all our current rentals. Ask what websites your property manager uses, ask what the success rate for those websites are, ask where they get a majority of their candidates. Like I said, we advertise on 28 different websites. I would say about 40 to 50% of our applicants still come from Craigslist. In the Bay Area, that's just one of the biggest websites, and we deal with it on a day-to-day basis. We also require that every applicant tour the property. We will not let someone apply sight unseen. That's just one of our requirements, and the first step to verifying that they will be a quality tenant. Question number 14, can I see a sample of the management agreement, of a sample of the lease? The answer should be yes. These shouldn't be secret documents that you only see once you're ready to sign up. You should be able to review them, ask questions about them, figure out what the terms of the contract are, what the fees are, what you're getting yourself into. I will send anyone that wants a copy of my management agreement. It is a sample, so I don't put your specific details in there, and it is watermarked. So you can't use it. Same with the lease. You can't use it because these are copyrighted documents that we pay a license for to use as a professional property management firm. But Our management agreement is about 16 pages long, and our lease agreement is almost 70 pages long. And we update those on an annual basis at the very minimum, so we stay up to date with all the current local, state, and federal requirements. Question number 15. Who handles the maintenance work, and is there 24/7 support? This is crucial. Maintenance is one of those items that is either going to help or hurt you as a property manager and as a landlord. Unfortunately, there's no way to get around maintenance. You're going to have maintenance cost regardless of who's managing it, whether it's yourself or a property manager. The benefit to using a property manager is a couple things. One, some property management firms like myself have on-staff technicians or handymen. They can do a majority of the minor maintenance, light switches, light plumbing, changing a faucet, painting, patching walls, stuff like that. For those more complex matters, such as water heaters, HVAC, roofs, property management firms have relationships with professional third-party vendors that are licensed, bonded, and insured, and will oftentimes respond quicker to us than they will to you. So we utilize those professional partners to get you the best service possible. Now, you may only get one bid from us, and the reason for that is we, at least for our company, are price shopping our vendors on a regular basis without their knowledge. So the prices that they're providing are in line with the current market and in line with the current project. We also have a maintenance director that's familiar with the different types of maintenance and the general cost. So he can call out the vendor before we even send you an estimate. So you know what's going on. Most property management firms also provide 24/7 maintenance contact. We have a 24/7 maintenance phone number that's answered by a live person. That team member is trained to assess the situation. Can they help resolve the situation over the phone, turn off the water so it's not flooding anymore, flip a circuit breaker, unclog the garbage disposal, something like that, over the phone. So we don't even need to send someone out, and thus saving you some money. If they can't resolve it over the phone, they then assess and see if it's something that we need to send someone out as an emergency work order right then and there, even if it's in the middle of the night. If it's not an emergency, we will then assess and triage and see if we can send someone out the following morning or the following business day and do it for our normal fees, not the emergency maintenance fees. We have your best interests in mind. Question number 16. How is rent collected? What forms of payment do you accept? As a professional third-party property manager, we set the tenants up with an online portal where they can actually link it to their checking account and pay their rent online. However, we also take personal check, cashier's check, and money order. We do not take cash, and we do not take credit card. If they pay in person, we will supply them with a receipt at their request. If they pay online, it automatically gets logged into their tenant ledger online. So they can see when the payment was made. For our system, when we input the payment into the tenant ledger as well, they can see that from their online portal, even if they don't pay through the online portal. The other benefit to the online portal, for us at least, is it allows the tenants to submit maintenance requests online and be able to track those maintenance requests. So not only do they have that 24/7 maintenance contact center, they also have the ability to do it online in writing and attach photos and then see the process of that maintenance work order throughout the entire stage. Question number 17. How frequently is your lease updated, and what is the standard term of your lease? As I mentioned, our lease is updated on at least an annual basis. We use the most current CAA lease and their addendums, and then we have a real estate attorney review our other addendums, our Advent Properties specific addendums, on an annual basis to make sure that they stay in line with current local, state, and federal laws. For those leases that are already ongoing, we will send updates of addenda to those tenants where we need to make them. For instance, last year it was a bed bug disclosure. This year it's the AB 1482 exemption disclosure for those properties that are exempt from the AB 1482. Our newest lease actually has that disclosure for AB 1482 built directly into it. So we don't have to do that for any of our new leases. That's only for the older leases that were already in place. Now remember, you cannot make material changes to a lease, but you can send updated addenda as necessary for local, state, and federal law. And you can do that even without the tenants signing if you do a 30-day proof of service notice. And it should actually be 35 days, give 5 days for the mailing. Question number 18. Do you renew leases annually? What are the benefits of a month-to-month lease? I typically do not advise landlords to renew a fixed term lease beyond that first year. There's very little benefit to a landlord to have a fixed term lease beyond that first year. Leases under the CAA lease automatically go month to month at the expiration of that fixed term. That allows you more leeway as an owner to make changes as necessary that are allowed by law, by serving notice or by getting a signature from the tenants. There are a few cases where we will renew a lease, but again, under current situation, especially with COVID, you don't necessarily want to lock someone into a one-year lease if you don't have to. This is done case by case. If you have specific questions, I'll provide my email and phone number at the very end. You can ask me those very specific details on this. Question number 19. What happens if I decide to sell my property? Do I have to sell it through you? This is an important question to ask your property manager because every property manager will probably have a different question. Now, on the backside, there's things to think about. Under the current just cause ordinances in most cities, as well as under AB 1482, selling your property is not a reason you can ask the tenants to leave. There's a couple ways you can work around this. One is you sell it tenant occupied. This requires you to work with the tenants for the showings, for the photos, and when you sell the property, their lease actually transfers with the property and their rent now transfers to that new owner. I do this all the time, so it's pretty common here in the Bay Area. You could potentially negotiate a buyout agreement before you sell the property with the tenants, where the tenants vacate and you pay them to leave. If this is something you're interested in, talk to me or talk to an attorney familiar with local real estate law. So you do everything by the books. Each city, each jurisdiction has specific requirements for documentation that must be served to this tenant, to the city, and they may even mandate levels of payments to buy a tenant out. The second question there is, do I have to sell the property through you? The answer is no. You can sell the property through whomever you like. However, there may be caveats for each property management firm. For instance, one of the stipulations in my management agreement is that if you sell a property through an outside brokerage, we will not continue to manage the property. And the reasoning behind this is it makes it very difficult to manage when someone else is telling and promising tenants different things during that sales process. If I sell the property for you, or if one of the other property management firms sells your property for you, they will typically continue to manage the property for you during that entire sales process. The benefit to having a property manager sell your property, one, they know the property. They know the maintenance, they know the tenants. They can actually usually get access to the property better than some other broker coming in off the street because the tenants we're a known entity to the tenants and they know and trust us as their property manager and now as the real estate agent. But again, this is a case-by-case basis. If you have specific questions on this, feel free to talk to me later. Question number 20. Are you familiar with local rent and eviction control laws? What experience do you have? This is critical, especially in the Bay Area. More and more cities are updating or adding rent control and eviction control laws to their jurisdiction. And they vary from city to city. Hayward's rules are not the same as San Leandro's rules, which are not the same as Oakland's rules, which are not the same as Berkeley rules. So we as property managers constantly attend training and seminars through the local associations, through real estate attorneys, through the Association of Realtors, to stay up to date with what the local rules and regulations are for each city. We want to make sure that we're protecting and promoting you as your professional property manager and real estate agent. Question number 21. How does AB 1482 or the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 affect my property? This is important. Some single family homes, as well as most multifamily homes throughout the state of California, are now subject to a rent cap and eviction protections. This varies city to city, and the local rent control or eviction control may be stricter than AB 1482. And as such, your local rent control overrules the AB 1482. Why is this important? If your home is exempt, you actually need to notify the tenants by July 1 of their exemption before you can raise their rent beyond the rent cap or the rent control amount. Also, AB 1482 doesn't apply to new construction. And what they call new construction is buildings built within the last 15 years. So this will be a rolling exemption, meaning if the building is, for instance, it's 2020, if the building was built in 2005 or earlier, it is now no longer exempt from AB 1482. So as the years progress, properties will continue to lose their exemption and become subject to AB 1482. Question number 22. How long of a term is your management agreement? Is there an early termination clause? Most property management agreements that I'm aware of are typically a one-year agreement, one year or more agreement. And the reason for this, like I mentioned before, is because this is a long-term relationship. We want to do what's in the best interest for you and your property and your tenants. And to do that, we need to build that relationship with you and with the tenants to be successful at this. Most management agreements do have an early termination clause. We have one in ours. My attorney has advised us that we should have that in there. If you have a frank conversation with the broker of the company, they might be able to waive that early termination clause if the management's not working for you and it's not working for them. Again, that's a case-by-case basis. I'm more than happy to discuss that on an individual level with you. Number 23, do team members have specialized roles? Yes. For us, that's true. For other companies, that may not be true. Earlier on, I mentioned compartmentalized versus portfolio style management. Portfolio style management is where one person is the property manager, the leasing manager, the maintenance manager, and does the accounting for that property. This is good because they have all the knowledge of that one single property or the properties that they oversee. However, they also deal with everything. So if an emergency comes at one property, they may have to focus on that and put your issue to the side while they're dealing with something that's more emergent. Other companies like mine do a compartmentalized approach. And this is where I have a leasing team, I have a property management team, I have a maintenance team, and I have an accounting team. The reason we've done it this way is it allows me to have the best people doing what they do best in each of those departments. My leasing team is not a property manager or a maintenance manager. So they're only going to be out showing the properties and getting them rented quicker for you. They're showing nights and weekends when people are actually available. The property managers are not leasing agents. So they're going to deal with the day-to-day communication, notices, rent increases, everything that happens to the property to make sure that everything is tracked, monitored, and kept up to date. My maintenance team is only dealing with maintenance. They know the maintenance issues. They've actually been trained in maintenance, so they understand what some of the solutions could be, and they're able to price check the bids that are coming in to make sure they make sense for the issue that's being reported. And then my accounting team, they are full-time accountants. They collect the rent, they reconcile it, making sure only the appropriate people are paying. They pay all necessary bills on your behalf. They make sure that you're paying your business taxes and your business licenses up to date. And then they do the end of month accounting and the end of year accounting. And we actually send out a 1099 along with that end of year summary for your tax preparation purposes. So there's pluses and minuses to both situations. Talk to the property manager and see what they do and why they've chosen it to do that way. Number 24, are you knowledgeable about evictions? Who covers the cost? This is critical, especially nowadays with the just cause ordinances. that are out there. Property managers have to stay up to date. They have to know the rules and regs and when to bring in a real estate attorney for the best interest of you, your property, and your tenants. Most jurisdictions have what's called the just cause ordinances. It varies from 11 to 15 reasons you can ask a tenant to leave. The most common being non-payment of rent, as well as nuisance or owner move-in. Each of those requires a different set of documentation, different set of protocols. The property manager can walk you through the basics, get everything prepared, and then submit it to the attorney. The cost of the attorney and the cost of the eviction are actually an owner cost. The property manager can help cut those costs by doing a lot of the back end work, so you're not paying the high attorney fees to do that. Number 25, do you have references? Yes. Every property manager should have references they're willing to provide you. I have references, and I have references for single family homes, multifamily homes, bigger buildings, commercial spaces, whatever it is. So I provide you with the appropriate type of reference for the property that you're going to bring on board with me. That way you're comparing apples to apples and getting the most truthful, knowledgeable answer. And finally, a bonus question. Do you and your staff participate in continuing education? Yes. My team, like I said, is all Ccrm certified. They keep up their skills by doing continuing education. We actually participate in multiple local associations, so we stay up to date on all the local changes to the real estate market, as well as the rental laws. And we do those both in person and more so recently, webinars like this, so my staff can stay up to date and better serve you, our client, and lessen your liabilities as landlords. So the next part of the presentation, I want to talk about what do I need to know if I don't want to hire a property manager and I want to continue to do it on my own. So I've put together a few slides on this. First off, don't go it alone. Maintain your membership in the RHA or whatever local association is available in your city. You want to stay up to date with the current rules and regs. You want to stay up to date with the current leases. They can help you run credit checks. They can give you free advice. They can refer you to property managers or real estate attorneys when it's necessary. So keep those relationships with the local associations. Secondly, all these laws do apply to you. So even if you're an individual landlord managing one home, you are subject to all the same rules and regulations that a professional property manager is subject to. Ignorance is no excuse. You can still have a great amount of liability. So do everything correctly, seek the advice of professionals if you're unsure, and ask advice. Don't think that just because you're a small mom and pop landlord that it doesn't pertain to you. It does. And I've seen landlords get in significant trouble for not following the laws, particularly fair housing laws. When you're leasing out an apartment, set your standards and stick with them. First and foremost, put together a one-sheet list of all your requirements. Have this printed and so you follow these standards. You can supply this sheet with every application that you hand out or every application that is emailed into you. We post this directly on our website, so anyone can look at it, as well as we put it in each of our advertisements when they're applying for the home. Such things you want to have on there is minimum credit score, minimum monthly income, pet policies, deposits, rental verifications, employment verifications, no past due collections, no evictions. You want to set it and stick to these standards, but make sure the standards you are setting follow all fair housing guidelines. If you're unsure, talk to a property manager, talk to the Rental Housing Association, or talk to a real estate attorney to help review your standards to make sure that they do follow all the local laws. When you're screening an applicant, the best thing you do is screen them. Check their credit, their income, make sure they have no unlawful detainers, that's also known as an eviction, and then check their references for their previous landlords. Choose your new tenant from qualified and verified applicants. Do not be swayed and make an exception for someone. It's much more challenging to get someone out of the property once they're in there than to not allow them to move in the first place. It'll also cost you a ton more money dealing with lawyers and attorneys. So do not be swayed, follow your qualification standards. If you have employees or vendors that you're working with, screen every employee and vendor that is accessing your property, both vacant or occupied. You're liable for anything that happens on those properties as the landlord. Once either the vendor or the employee is in, especially to an occupied unit, they have access to everything. So be careful. Only choose licensed, bonded, insured vendors to protect you and your liability. Also, you can carry different types of landlord insurance, and I do recommend that. If you have employees that work for you, particularly those that are assisting with leasing or with the applications, you may want to do a criminal or credit check on them. However, I will caution this and say talk to an attorney about the legality of these to protect yourself, so you're not doing anything illegal. Once you get a tenant in there, the biggest and best thing you can do is have a good rental agreement. You want an agreement that is up to date with the current local, state, and federal requirements. Don't use the same lease that you've been using for 20 years. Heck, don't even use the same lease that you were using last year. The laws have changed, the exemptions have changed, the addendums have changed. Make sure that you're using the most up-to-date lease, and the Rental Housing Association can help you with that. You can also potentially pay a property manager to screen your applicants and process your lease on your behalf, and they will use the most up-to-date lease and potentially, like us, allow for electronic signing, especially in the COVID time where you want to limit that person-to-person interaction. If there's ever a disagreement or a situation, the lease is the first place that you and the tenant, and if attorneys get involved, attorneys are going to look. So you want a very detailed and up-to-date lease. Like I said, our lease is about 70 pages long. The other key thing is to document. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. The lease and rent increases are a good start. You definitely want those in writing, but you want record of everything, any maintenance requests, any work that's been done, any nuisances, anything and everything. Save these in your file for your tenant. It's oftentimes, if you have a phone conversation, you can document it by emailing a summary of the conversation back to the tenant after it. That shows that you're trying to keep that open and clear line of communication with your tenants. Also, if you're doing maintenance or if the unit's vacant, take pictures before and after. Take pictures of damage that's reported and the repairs that are completed. Take pictures of rule violations. You can take video as well. However, the courts tend to prefer photos. They're much easier as evidence if you have to present a case in the unlawful detainer courts. Next thing is maintain your property. A poorly maintained building attracts the wrong type of tenant. If the building looks like you don't care, the tenants aren't going to care either. Make it a place they want to call home and will take care of it. And also make it known to your tenants that you want to hear about the maintenance requests sooner rather than later. Problems, maintenance issues don't go away. They just get bigger and much more expensive. So keep that open line of communication to your tenants and respond to your maintenance requests in a timely manner. If it's outside of your scope, bring in a professional. That's the biggest thing I can advise you on. This is key. You want to raise your rents regularly. I advise every single one of my clients to raise their rent even a minimal amount on an annual basis. There's lots of justifications for this. One, your property may be subject to a rent control, and you can only raise it by a certain percentage. Raise it that amount every year. This keeps up with the cost of living. It also, if it's subject to rent control or the rent cap, you may not be able to do a larger rent increase later on if you don't do the rent later on. So you want to keep up to date with those rent increases. The value of your building and of your investment is partially based on the income stream for the property. So if you're not making those small increases, you may not be able to catch up and get the most value for your building. Also, if you're keeping up with those rent increases, This will help you deal with those capital improvements that have to happen on the property, replacing roofs, repaving driveways, landscaping, stuff like that that's important and affects the value and the curb appeal of your property, as well as the health and safety of your tenants. Another big thing is large rent increases often will prompt tenants to move out and find cheaper renting. So if you stay up with minimal rent increases on an annual basis, you're likely to keep your tenants longer and keep much happier tenants. If you want to terminate a tenancy, be careful. The laws are ever changing on this matter. Don't threaten a 30 or 60-day notice of termination before talking with an attorney. You may be subject to eviction control or eviction restriction ordinances, and you want to know that what you're doing is legal because they can come after you for an unlawful eviction if what you've proposed or what you've served them is not lawfully correct. There may be specific local processes. For instance, in Oakland, before you can start an unlawful detainer for a nuisance, you must serve 2 7-day notice to cease agreements within a 6-month period, and then a 3-day notice to cure or quit. Each city is a little bit different, so I always advise consulting with an attorney before you even threaten termination of tenancy. Lastly, tenants are your customers. Communicate clearly and openly with them. Don't overshare. Let them know the rules and exemptions and expectations right from the start. Be nice, be cordial. When you treat residents with dignity and respect and courtesy at all times, even in conflict, they're much more likely to cooperate with you. So now I'm going to open up the chat so we can answer some questions. There were a few that came in through the chat, so let me go over those first. What is the typical management in the East Bay? That's a very difficult question. It ranges. The management fee, I would say, is typically dependent on the number of units you bring into that property manager, but can range from anywhere from 5% to 10% in the Bay Area. And each firm has their own reason for the percentage that they choose. Also, leasing fees vary by management firm, and it's typically, we do it by percentage. Most property managers do it by percentage as well. And you're likely to see somewhere between 50 and 100% of 1 full month's rent for the leasing fee. Next question is, this is more for Lee and Bill. How does COVID, will Ccrm classes be offered online to retake the entire exam or course if it expires during this time period? So I'll save that for Lee or Bill. Now I'm going to unmute everyone. So if you have questions, you are all unmuted. So does anyone have a question for me? You can also still type it into the chat box and I will be reviewing that as well.
Maximus, is that a good question?
You should all be unmuted now.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
Sitting with the property manager, looking at the property that we had, so would you be able to give us a suggestion of what can we do according to where the rents are as far as increasing the rents annually?
Yes, so that's a case-by-case situation. So what you can do is, I'll leave my contact information at the very end. You are welcome to reach out to me and schedule a call. And I'm more than happy to discuss where you're at currently with your rents, and based on the city and the state laws, where you can go with your rents. And you can email me or text me to get a time to set up on my calendar. I've opened up I put on the calendar or on the screen all my contact information.
Okay. Okay, and then the other question is, with this COVID-19, I start seeing on the news that different shops and restaurants, I think, are starting to charge a surcharge, COVID-19 surcharge. Have you heard anything about that? Because I believe that the apartments now are going to have to be sanitized in the way when people move out, or what can you tell us about that?
I haven't heard that yet. There are companies that I've seen now advertising doing a COVID-19 type cleaning, using specialized cleaning agents, as well as some of them I've even seen use UV light. I don't know about a surcharge yet and whether or not we can get away with that. I don't think it's been discussed on that level yet for the landlords. What I do know is that under the current eviction moratorium, you can set up a forbearance agreement with the tenants that cannot pay rent, and you cannot charge a late fee if their rent is affected due to COVID-19. And the current, I believe the current eviction moratorium goes 30 days beyond the end of the local emergency order. However, they have a full year to repay that past due rent. And if it's that past due rent that is directly related to COVID-19 cannot be used in an unlawful detainer for non-payment of rent.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just answer the question again, or answer the question about Ccrm classes. Yes, I am working to get Ccrm online. In fact, new curriculum has been published. It hasn't been completely released yet by CAA, but the entire Ccrm curriculum has been rewritten for 2020. So I hope in the next couple of weeks to have some online classes available for recertification and initial certification for those who would be interested in it.
Hey Lee, it's me, Ken. I was the one who asked that. If my 2-year period ends coming up here in about a month or so before I get the opportunity to take the couple remaining courses, do you know, am I going to have to redo all 9 courses as well as the exam, or is there a leniency period due to this?
No, I fully expect that CAA and Margarita, who runs the education division at CAA, will understand the extenuating circumstances and give, probably a 6 or 9 month extension. I will find out and I will email you about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Lee, can you email me as well?
No. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So this is my first webinar. If anyone has feedback for me, I would love to hear it. You can leave it in the chat box, or you can email me. All my contact information is up on the screen. But does anyone have any other questions?
Caesar, are you trying to ask a question? Your microphone is muted. Darryl, can you unmute Kat's iPad, please?
Did that work? No.
Stand by 1 second, guys. Darryl will unmute you, and you should get a. There we go.
Got it?
Yes.
Is that fine? Okay. One of my tenants, which I put it in, I believe is using the COVID-19 as an excuse not to pay rent. When I qualified him, he was not qualified to receive, to move into the unit because his credit was not good enough. So his mother, she co-signed for him as a rent guarantor. And apparently now, I requested from him to send me proof that this hourly they've been cut down, or have his boss write me a note that he's not getting paid due to COVID-19. He has not done either one of those, but he did state that he could not qualify for any benefits from the government because he's still employed. So what would you do in this case? The mother, she's the rent guarantor. I wrote her a letter and I asked her, your son is not paying the rent. Therefore, you guaranteed to pay the rent. So I'm requesting that you start to pay the rent. If your son, he doesn't pay for it. I'm told from them.
My current understanding is that you can set up a rent forbearance agreement and they have a year to repay any past due rent due to COVID-19 related issues. After that year, if they can't repay it, my current understanding is, and this may change, that gets converted to a consumer debt and you would have to go through the small claims court instead of doing an unlawful detainer process for the non-payment of rent due to COVID-19.
Okay. If the man is still making money, still making a salary, and he's using this as an excuse, wouldn't that be a reason to start some sort of eviction?
In the current state, no. I could, if you want to talk with a real estate attorney familiar with the local eviction law, I'm more than happy to refer some to you. But my current understanding is that due to COVID-19, the courts, the unlawful detainer courts are not even open. They may not even open up until July or August at this point. The rent is not forgiven. They still owe the past due rent, even though it is due to COVID-19. They just have an extended time period to pay it. And under current law, my understanding is the moratorium on eviction goes through at least 30 days after the emergency order is lifted. And then once that's lifted, the following months, if they're still not paying rent, that might give you a claim to file an unlawful detainer or eviction process for those following months. But under the current COVID-19 related, they have a year to pay it back.
Okay, now shall I ask both of them, him and his mother, because she signed the rent guarantor? So how much responsibility does she have in a case like this?
Well, she is a guarantor, so she is responsible. She is financially responsible. I would talk to her and or send a polite letter. You don't want to threaten anything because that'll look bad for you in front of the courts if you ever do have to go to court for this type of situation. But if you really have questions, it'd be best to consult with a real estate attorney familiar with the local emergency moratorium, and they can provide you the 100% true legal advice. I saw, Larry, you raised your hand. Hold on, let me unmute you. Larry, try unmuting yourself. We can't hear you. But now we can hear you. Maybe not. Larry, do you want to just try typing your question in the chat? We can't hear you. Well, Larry, I mean, does anyone else have questions? For those of you that do need to go, we have approached the 1 o'clock time. I will stick around for the next 20-30 minutes. So if people want individual questions or more detailed questions answered, I will be here and be available.
Okay.
But you know that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Darryl. That was really a terrific presentation. I wanted to give an extra cheer, an extra clap, or at least notes on some things that stuck out to me that I know I'm always repeating to members, maybe some of you. Long leases. Yes, they're inconvenient. They're not a lot of fun to go through and sign or make sure everybody's signing everything. But as I tell everybody, the longer the lease, the more coverage you have. The leases, everything in that lease is there either to protect you or because it's legally mandated. Long leases, awesome. Updated annually, amazing. No pet deposits, lump it in as part of the security deposit. That's something we hit on in Ccrm. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And especially the part about remaining an RHA member. Double claps for that one. So thank you all for joining us for our initial installment of Education in Isolation. We hope to have more of these for you soon. And thank you, Darryl, for setting the bar very high for anybody coming after you. You guys know how to get a hold of me. You can email me at the office, lee@rhosource.com, lee@rhosource.com. And there is, oh, I see one more item here in the chat. Darryl, could you unmute Bill, please? I asked Bill
Comment.
if he could clarify the Alameda County ordinance, because it has been convoluted and changed several times, and the current status of it and what the future status is.
Sure. Thanks, Lee. The Alameda County ordinance is in effect as of April 28th, with a big asterisk. And the in effect part is an emergency ordinance that stretches out the repayment period for back due rent to 12 months. At that point, as Darryl said, it's reclassified to consumer debt, meaning you can't evict someone at that point, but you can chase them through small claims court. Tenants do not have to give you documentation if they claim that they can't pay due to COVID. And there are civil fines, civil penalties to landlords if the ordinance is violated, and those penalties are in the neighborhood of $1,000 a day. The ordinance, we as an industry did a really good job of standing up and being heard prior to the formal approval, the first reading of the actual ordinance, not the emergency ordinance. And we got it postponed until next Tuesday, June 2nd. At that point, we expect, haven't gotten any assurances yet, but we expect there will be some changes made that would be favorable to our industry, one of which may be the reinstitution of the ability to pursue back rent through unlawful detainer at the end of 12 months. Another change might be that documentation would have to be offered by a tenant who's claiming COVID-related inability to pay, and the documentation would include a requirement that the tenants report any assistance they've received, either locally or federally, and that would mean unemployment. So that's a good thing. And then there's also potential for a reduction of the fines and penalties to property managers and landlords who somehow get crosswise with the ordinance. So we are in the process of meeting with supervisors and supervisors' staffs, peppering with letters and emails from the industry. We think we're having an impact. But next Tuesday, and please watch your email, we may be asking you for help vis-a-vis another email or a phone call to a supervisor. But next Tuesday, we'll have clearer picture of the way things are going. And that would be the first reading of 2 readings, so nothing would be formally completed until June 9th. But next Tuesday is a very important day. Does that get at what you're looking for, Lee?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you, Bill. Basically, we've got, if it comes out unfavorable to us, we're going to have about a week of time between the first and second reading to try and change the bill for the better, for the fairer, really. Before I threw it to Bill for the ordinance, somebody else had one more question. Did I miss somebody, or am I hearing things? Okay. Well, I think we're good. I will also recommend that if you are on LinkedIn, find Darryl, connect with him. He has a great set of videos that he's been posting on LinkedIn that are definitely worth viewing. I don't want to spoil anything. Go out, connect with Darryl on LinkedIn. And that wraps it up on my side. Darryl, is there anything else that you have for us?
That wraps it up on my side as well. I will remain on the line till about 1:20. So if people want to stick around after, I'm more than happy to answer individual questions. But thank you for all attending. I was great speaking with you, and I hope to see you guys in the future at some of these webinars or in person once we can do that again.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thanks you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Everyone have a good day.
I'm Nancy. I'm sorry I came in late. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I missed a good half or more. But I don't know if there's anything really, really important that I should have paid attention to and didn't, but that was.
So I'll be sending this to Lee so he can forward you a copy of the presentation.
Okay.
The presentation has also been recorded, and I'm going to post that on my YouTube, so you can go back and check the time that you missed.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. Thank you. I guess I can find you on YouTube. How do I?
It's under Advent Properties Inc. is our YouTube channel.
Nancy,
If
when
you just email me or email Lee, we can share it with you.
yeah, when Darryl gets it posted, I'll share the link with the participants today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was in the wrong room or something, and then I came in. But
yeah,
sounds like it was good. So
Worth watching.
yeah.
Al Bronzini is talking.
if Darryl, if you could unmute Bellio's iPad, please.
Yes.
Stand by just 1 second, Al. We'll get you unmuted.
It should have
There
done.
it is. Now we can hear you, Al.
All right. Much reference was made to leases. Now, will all of this apply on month-to-month tenancies?
Yes. Anything beyond 14 days is subject to just cause ordinances under both the local ordinances and the AB 1482 ordinances.
All right, and I have another question. I have 8 units here in Castro Valley, and I have a home on the property. I do my own managing. I've been pretty successful for 28 years. I'm proud to say that I have a wonderful relationship with all of my tenants and always have had. This comes to a surprise to many, but I've never lost a month's rent in 28 years. So, but I realize that the climate of the business has changed considerably. And so at some point at the tender age of 90, I need to be thinking about a property management company. So I really enjoyed this presentation today. Question also is, there's an advantage to being on site friend and property manager to my tenants, but then of course makes it difficult when it comes to raise rents. And my thinking right now is, and I have some rents coming up in July and August and September, is I'm going to give them a pass in view of the COVID-19 situation for this year. I'm going to skip a year. You know, it's not going to devastate me. I can still make it work without too much difficulty. And I know them somewhat on a personal basis now. And I also know that I see their cars parked there daily when their cars used to be going to work. So there's something going on that, you know, I need to be aware of. So that was my thinking. Again, thank you for this webinar. First time I've ever done anything like this. Quite enjoyable.
Glad to hear.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you kindly.
Glad to have you here, Al.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions? I'll unmute everyone again. Doesn't look like it. Well, I want to thank you all again for coming. If you have questions, reach out to myself, to Lee, or to Bill.
Thank you, Darryl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Stay safe. Wash your hands.